Hey, what's up? My name is Aldrin Cruz, one of the leading videographers of Captured Frames, and today we're going to show you what we do and how we film wedding videos. What we do. Yeah, that makes sense. So when shooting groom prep, there's a few things to consider. The detail shots like flat lays and the suit, the dressing up, letter reading, portraits, and group shots. Let's start with the details. Our style of shooting is to shoot dramatic, which is usually dark and contrasty. This is done by looking out for the best lighting, and for a capture frame style of shooting, we look out for big windows, symmetry if possible, that brings in harsh lighting or soft lighting, depending on what looks good on the scene. So when you're shooting details, it's always important to do a flat lay, then separate into 3 elements to have a variety. When doing the flat lay, make sure there's a balance and relatively even spacing of all the accessories. Try to have the background contrast the details. Example, white tiles and dark shoes. Once the flat lay set, you have the option of moving the camera or keeping the camera still and move the environment. If it's your first time, moving the environment is encouraged. With compositions, use the rule of thirds that is inbuilt in your camera. Do what you want with it, keep it centered or on the top right, where the lines intersect, symmetrical. It's endless, and it comes down to your personal preference or your style of shooting. And if you haven't had your style, this is your chance to find it. Just play around with it. Once you have your composition set, keep in mind on how the lighting interacts. Just a note, lighting would be the first thing to look out for when shooting, but for the sake of explaining, I thought it's easier to mention it now because we'll use light in this step. But you can save time by setting up the flat lay at the light source than somewhere else, if you get what I mean. Like, you just look for the light and you set up there. As a general rule of thumb, you turn off all the lights and if possible block all the lights and use a light bar, or the more run and gun approach is to use a thin sheet of curtain and use it to create shape in the detail. This makes it dramatic and makes the audience focus on what to look at. Usually we shoot the flat lay in a 50mm lens. As for the blazer and the suit, we usually use the blazer and a hanger by itself. We try to incorporate the same principle of composition and lighting, but add a focus on symmetry and flares of light from the back. Can't always have both, but try to at least look out for it. This is usually shot with a 24mm wide and then a tight shot with a 50mm. For the tight shot, put yourself in the mindset of the buyer or craftsman and take details of what makes the blazer eye-catching. An example can be the monogram on the shirt, the hanger usually has a name on it, the buttons, the texture of the suit. At least get 2 tight shots. In terms of compositions, you can always use foreground or have the groom interact with the suit, like walk up to it or inspect it, or even just using reflections or like layers of foreground. So when you have done all that, it's time for the saucy part, and it's directing the groomsmen in getting ready. As you're aware, we're not filming movies, so you can't stage the scene or do a lot of retakes to keep the emotion and to keep the same emotion consistently. What I'm trying to say is you can't stage or perfectly compose every candid moment, especially when you have a limited time to recreate moments. Anyways, usually in a well-lit place with symmetry, you have the groom boxed with the groomsmen facing each other to get ready. To have his groomsmen involved, make them take part in helping the groom get ready with a detail. If there are extra details, sometimes the parents can be involved or a sibling. If not, the groom can do it himself. Just play by ear. Usually, we make the best man do the blazer. Not sure why, maybe because they have more screen time. Uncertain, but if possible, 2 takes. 1 wide and another tight shot or a wide shot of the groom's reaction. To make sure there is a smooth process and not having the groomsmen underdressed and having the groom all freshened up and dressed, have everyone dressed 1 step ahead of the groom. This can happen at the same light source / window space you have chosen, and when it's the groom's turn, they move away and get ready at the next detail. While this is happening, keep an eye out for candids as well. You might be shooting the groom and the groomsmen dressing, but then like something funny could be happening behind you, so just be ready to flick around. When the groom is getting dressed, have a wide shot to provide the context and have 3 tight shots. 2 of the reactions of the groom and the groomsmen and another of the action taking place. And repeat this with every detail until everyone's fully dressed. Some prompts to have some reactions is to ask them to look at each other and it gets a bit awkward and they smile or whatever. Like that's one. And if they're almost done, tell them to hug it out. Keep in mind, if they put on a detail too quick, then make them fiddle with it until you got the shot. And if they're struggling, then get the shot, then you can help them, or they can figure it out off camera. You save more time trying to get it right on the camera. So yeah, just a food for thought. Once everyone's ready, there's sometimes a letter reading. It's courtesy to ask if they want to read it privately with no one around, or to have everyone present while he reads it. If he still doesn't want to, you can emphasize that you can like compose the camera and leave it rolling, and then you leave the room and then you can come back if this is something they want to look back on, but also keep it private. In terms of framing, prioritize composition and dramatic lighting. If possible, look out for Rembrandt lighting and look out for a good background framing. Usually frame with rule of thirds to force the eye to look at the groom. So try to keep where the lines intersect, make sure that's on the groom's eye as a general rule of thumb. You can use the environment to make leading lines into the groom, and this is shot usually in a medium shot or tight, but also have a wide as a backup always, so you have two angles. Make sure to mic up the groom as well. Make sure it is under the bombiniere, and if they don't have one for whatever reason, make sure your lapel is black, a black lapel, mic lapel. Just like compositions and lighting on the details, we implement them on subjects now while using prompts. And also try to utilize foreground in the compositions, and try to keep in mind of a wide and a tight shot. It's kind of repeating it, but yeah, it's important. With the group shots, there's this basic smiles. Usually you're in line with the photographer and you kind of bounce off him, but what usually happens is like everyone just a normal formal smile, a cheers and a speech with a drink. Maybe they can do a blue steel look. When the groom is by himself for a solo shoot, you can have him looking out the window, then to the camera, him putting on the watch or fixing up his suit. Yeah, just something simple like that. Something to keep in mind when shooting a wedding is knowing when to change lenses and angles, because it usually depends on the mood. In capture frames, we intentionally use gear in certain scenarios. You can shoot the groom prep mostly on 50mm, but having a wide on a gimbal and then maybe a tripod or monopod on the 50mm is very handy. And it's even handier if you can have it on a quick release. That way you can alternate between freehand. That's pretty much it for groom prep. I don't know if I spoke too fast. We'll look back in it and whatever. If you have any questions, or if you liked it, like it, subscribe if you want to keep up with the next few videos. We'll do a whole wedding on how we shoot it. And yeah, I look forward into seeing you in the next video. Have a blessed day, night, evening. Have a blessed time. Peace.